Hello ladies and gentlemen, MarauderEX here with a slightly different video than usual, a little bit more technical. What I'm doing for this episode is I'm showing off my gaming setup and recording setup, how I've got everything linked, where it needs to go, how it's hooked up so that I can play and record at the same time. I'm doing that as a little bit two reasons. One, to show people how it's done. Anyone who's currently a viewer looking to get into this, maybe give you some ideas of how I've got it set up so you have an idea. And two, for a little bit more self-serving purpose, I'm going to be changing things again. I'm on a constant, never-ending quest to get the best quality out of some of these things, which means I just pump lots of money into this hobby that I really shouldn't. And I've got a couple of ideas of how to progress from here, and I want to get some viewer feedback on what do you guys think would be the best course of action from a viewer standpoint. How would you like to see the content that I'm putting out? So, a quick glance, cursory glance. We have the setup itself. We got cats down there basking in a light. So that is the setup itself. You can see it's a kind of a nest of wires, which is why I don't, show it off regularly or often. Because even with wonderful cable management that my wife was able to conjure, it's still a rat's nest, and that's just how it. That many consoles. I'm going to try to put graphs or diagrams or something here so that you guys have a better idea as I'm talking about it. So starting off, the left-hand side of the shelf, I have on the second shelf a Wii, underneath that a Saturn, underneath that a Dreamcast, underneath that an N64, next to the N64 a PS2. All of those consoles are set up through S-Video. I have got an S-Video cord running from all of those systems to an S-Video switcher, and the S-Video switcher on its output has a splitter, one running to my PC for direct S-Video capture, the other running to an S-Video to HDMI adapter. This is my old one that crapped out. I've got another one hooked up, which we'll get into that in just a minute. The other column, starting on the very top shelf, I have a Wii U, followed by a 360, then a PS3, then an original Xbox that is modded for emulation purposes. So basically anything 16-bit or lower is going to be from that console. All of those are hooked up through component, the red, blue, green, I hope, because I always get component and composite confused. I can never keep them straight. So it is the red, blue, green input. All four of those systems running to a component switch box, the output of the component switch box, splitter running one section to my PC for recording, one portion running to the TV directly through its component input. No need for any sort of adapter upscale or anything like that. My TV thankfully does still have a component input. So, the PC aspect of it, the software that I use Debut Video Capture and VideoPad Video Editor. Both of these programs come from NCH Software. Debu's been a really good program that I've been using for the last couple of years. It's one that I really recommend. It has its ups and downs. It's very user-friendly to get into. It has a little bit of customization options. Some customization options that I really like. Like, it allows for the watermark that I've been able to place in a lot of my videos. It allows for the stretching to widescreen aspect that I use for a lot of videos as well. And it gives a really wide range of file formats that you can record in, as well as really allowing for a good codec for allowing good compression without too much quality loss. So this program has allowed me to really keep my file sizes really low while still keeping decent quality in the video content. VideoPad Editor, it is basic, bare bones video editing. It allows for things like transitions, things like crossfade, wipes. It allows for picture-in-picture, video-in-picture. anything that I've done, at least in the last year, I've either recorded or edited in Debut Video Capture or VideoPad Video Editor. So, not bad programs, but they have some limitations that I'm going to get to in just a moment. So, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a couple months ago, or weeks ago, a while back, I discussed the S-Video to HDMI adapter, this one that crapped out. I ordered a replacement, and it got here, and it's not a good replacement. Everything the last couple of weeks that I've been recording, like the gaming nostalgia videos, have come from that. But the recordings don't really seem to have a problem because I have a direct S-Video connection from the switch box to the PC for recording. Whereas when it goes through the adapter to the TV is where I start noticing the problems. It wasn't as bad as this one, where this was causing signal feedback to both ends, and it was getting crap quality on the TV and the recording. This new box, however, just has crap quality to the TV. It really looks... it looks almost as bad as RF, if you people remember what RF is. It's the coax-like adapter for a lot of older consoles. It gives really bad quality, really bad flickering, and problems adjusting to a lot of things. So when I discussed this and this problem, I got a couple of really good suggestions for a possible upgrade. And that would be scart or scart. I'm not entirely sure how it's pronounced, but S-C-A-R-T. It is a signal cable format that is very popular in Europe and also exists in Japan. It is a very large rectangular shaped adapter that has 24 pins that separate various aspects of the signal quality out. So it's a fairly heavy duty thing. It's something that never picked up here in the US, unfortunately. I'm very disappointed by it because we got S-Video, which is kind of its cousin. SCART is just a little bit better than S-Video in its rawest state. So I was suggested S-Video and then buy an S-Video to HDMI adapter similar to this. Not a bad solution. The S-Video to the SCART to HDMI adapters are roughly the same price as these. So the only really major addition to the investment would be to add SCART cables to consoles that use them, which would be the Wii, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, and the PS2. The N64 here in the US, from what I can tell, does not allow for SCART directly out. It does not allow for the RGB type signal to go directly out, and I would have to mod it. If that's not the case, let me know, because most of what I've seen on it states that the N64 has to be modded. So it's not a major change that I'd have to do. I would lose the ability to record from the N64 doing straight SCART to HDMI without having to mod the N64, which I'm not entirely sure. I'm up for modding another system at the moment, so maybe. But from what I've seen on these, the SCART to HDMI provides really good signal. The only problem is I would be losing my current recording programs. Because the SCART to HDMI, I would have to have an HDMI splitter running HDMI to my TV and HDMI to my capture card. Which my capture card allows for tons of inputs. It is a AverMedia AverTV HD PCI capture card. So it allows for HDMI, allows for composite, component, and S-Video. Really, really versatile card. The problem is, Debut, however, does not allow for HDMI input, so I would be losing that program. And any other program that I've tried to use for recording doesn't seem to be very compatible with VideoPad editor as well, so I would most likely be losing that. Now I have alternatives. I have the program that came with the capture card. It's AverMedia Center for the AverTV HD capture card, and various editing programs online that you can acquire legitimately or illegitimately. but I have one that is legitimate from Adobe, one of the Premiere Pro suites that I have access to. I'd be able to use that. I have no idea how to use it. It would take a ridiculous learning curve. But the AverMedia Center recording doesn't offer a lot of the same bells and whistles that Debut has, which annoys the crap out of me that Debut cannot register an HDMI signal. If it could, then I wouldn't have a problem. So that's the cheap solution, the cheapest solution to avoid this problem. All of the reviews I've seen for the SCART to HDMI seem infinitely better than the S-Video to HDMI adapters that I've currently been dealing with. The more research I've done on this, however, the more interesting this has become. There's a device from Japan, from a company called Micomsoft, called the XRGB Mini FrameMeister. And it is the penultimate device for hooking up retro consoles to modern TVs. Now, you've seen I have a major problem with my current TV where I cannot hook a lot of these consoles in because you either have to share the component slot with composite, which we tried, and it provided abysmal signal quality to the point where I refused to use it. It was blurry and it was terrible on the TV, and it was the worst quality recording that I've done since my first Dragon Force videos that I recorded with a Dazzle USB capture card and its proprietary software. So you want 240 or even 144 resolution? That's it. That was what that did. And that was about the same quality as what happened when we had to share the component port with composite. It was terrible. The FrameMeister fixes this by upscaling and line doubling, which I'm not technical enough to know the specifics of how it does it, but it allows for lower end signals, the 240 and 480 range, to be converted to very crisp, very clear 720 1080. So it by all accounts, what it does well. Problem is that what I have been doing with Debut is I've been performing a cardinal sin to some. This is where I want your guys' feedback. My current setup, as you've seen, Debut allows me to stretch the aspect ratio to full screen, so that if you're watching on YouTube, you don't have the black bars on the sides. If you go back and watch some of my older videos, you'll see black bars on the sides, like the Shining Force videos, Shining the Holy Ark, Shining Wisdom, the original Dragon Force, a lot of my older Let's Plays, because they were only designed by 4x3. That was how they outputted. They were never designed to output in a 16:9 setting. So people, there are arguments on both sides of the fence that I've seen, and it's just one of those. I want to ask what people's opinions are, and it becomes a shouting match. So when I ask you guys this opinion, what do you think? Please don't attack anyone else for saying that one version's stupid compared to the other. Just tell me why you like this better than the other. So I have been stretching aspect ratios, which, again, some people say no, you don't do that, it makes the game look terrible. Always record the game in its natural resolution, which would be 4x3. So with the FrameMeister, or more than likely the scart to HDMI as well, I would be losing the ability to stretch to widescreen, because this is a feature of Debut, and since Debut cannot register an HDMI signal either of these ways, I'm going to be losing Debut, and thus more than likely losing this this functionality. So what aspect do you aspect ratio do you personally enjoy? regular, squared 4:3, or 16:9 widescreen. Even if it means stretching the video out. Does stretching the aspect ratio bother you? Does seeing Sonic a little bit wider make you feel a little more uncomfortable? Something you like to watch, dislike to watch, whatever? Or does the black bars not bother you at all? Things can be done to the black bars, various overlays, what have you, but it's not going to be the full size of the game. It's going to be game, some sort of add-on that is probably going to be static or just not the same as seeing the game in full screen. So that's where I want to get your opinion on this, because it's my point of view. I don't really mind the black bars, but if I can see it in full screen, I would prefer to see it in full screen. So that's my opinion and why I've been recording this way. But what your guys' opinion is, that's really part of the important thing. Is if it's something that you guys would refuse to watch, then there's no point in me making it, because that's the lovely relationship we have between content creator and content viewer. So my options would be to switch to HDMI in general. I could probably find an S-video to component and have everything running through component and still using this. But as it is now, the amount of research that I've done on it, the SCART is going to give really good signal quality on its own, either through the standard SCART to HDMI, and the framemeister seems to be just the most amazing piece of equipment for this type of thing. It is a pricey investment to the tune of about $350 at the time that I'm recording this. It may go up, it may go down, but it is not a cheap piece of equipment. And so if that is what I'm leaning toward, that would be a major investment, but a investment that I think might be worthwhile in the end, because I keep pissing away $50 at a time on these things. So that's a little bit of a downside. To give you an idea of how things would hook up with the framemeister and how I'm envisioning this, the framemeister allows for a lot of different inputs. It does not allow for component input. So what I would actually be doing is I would be switching my 360, my PS3, and my Xbox. I'd keep the component, but there's an adapter called component to D-terminal, which is a format that I've never seen before, because seems to be only popular in Japan. I'd be using that to hook into the framemeister's D-terminal port on the back. The Wii U I would switch to HDMI, because there are two HDMI inputs on the back of the framemeister. The other HDMI input I would actually be saving for when I got a PS4, because now with the most recent PS4 update, you can record from the PS4 directly through HDMI, because Sony has stripped the copy protection that goes through the HDMI ports that are currently found on the PS3, which is why I'd be keeping the PS3 component to D-terminal, because the three of those, that would be the best that I really could get with those. All other consoles, I would be using SCART, and then I'd be using a SCART to RGB adapter to have it plug into the framemeister's RGB connection on the front, which SCART to RGB seems to be just a simplistic cord. The N64 I would keep S-video so that I wouldn't have to worry about modding it out, because the framemeister allows for S-video and composite inputs along the front. Then everything would be outputted through HDMI, HDMI splitter, one to the TV, one to my Aver TV capture card. And then I would be using the Aver Media Center recording program more than likely, unless anyone has a suggestion on a really good program that allows for a lot of what I'm used to from debut, that allows an HDMI input. So anyone has any suggestions on that, I am all ears. So everything would be routed through one box. I would still have the switch boxes for the multiple systems in the same input, so all of the things on SCART, I would have an SCART switch. Everything through the D-terminal, I'd have a D-terminal switch. But it would allow for one input and then one output, so I wouldn't have to worry about switching settings at all between, on debut now I have to switch between its two major functions. It has the primary that allows for the SD inputs, so composite and S-video, and then it has a secondary for the HD for the component. So I have to switch that and constantly switch settings, which means sometimes I mess up a setting, which messes up the recording. This I wouldn't have to worry about. Same goes with the SCART to HDMI. I wouldn't have to worry about changing settings from that point on with that device either. But again, if I'm already going to be spending $50 for the SCART to HDMI and then probably $20 a pop on SCART cables for the consoles that need it, I might as well just bite the bullet and go whole hog. So that's my current setup, the software that I'm using, and how I've got everything split up. Like I said, I'm going to try to add graphics to make it a little bit more readable for those of you who are visualizing it in your heads. And so if this setup gives you an idea of how to record, that's fantastic. If you're already recording and have a little bit better of an idea, something that, you know, would make it a little bit easier for me to keep the features that I'm currently used to with things like Debut, but not have to worry about spending so much money on devices that seem to be crapping out. I'm not opposed to spending a ridiculous amount of money for something that's going to work, and from all accounts, the FrameMeister is that piece of equipment. So I have no problem shelling out the money for something that will work and will work long term. I have problems shelling out little bits of money every, 6 to 9 months on things that crap out on me. Because all that does is puts a delay in my recording, and I get upset with that. I get cranky. So that's my setup. Like I said, any suggestions on what you would do differently, or if this gives you an idea of how to start, that's the overall intention. Do you prefer the widescreen to the 4:3? As long as the quality is great, does it really matter? If the quality is even better on one or the other, that's what I want to hear. So that's my setup. That's my thoughts and plans for expansion. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Let me know, and I will see you next project. Till then, later everyone.